I hear we're live, so we're good to get started. My name is Kaylie. I'm the lead business consultant at Hibou. We're a gold level Odoo partner that's located in the Pacific Northwest in the United States. Our topic today is maintenance equipment and reports. Oh my! And it really is oh my, because we have a lot to cover today. So if I speak quickly, uh, never fear. There's full documentation on everything we're going to cover today at our website, hibou.io/docs. Additionally, we'll have time at the end for questions. And I brought t-shirts, so the first 3 people that ask questions can come and get a t-shirt if they want after the talk. So, the Hibou Odoo Suite open source modules that we're going to be covering today, in addition to stock out-of-the-box Odoo functionality, are purchase detail, repair, timesheet usage, and charges. To set the stage for our use case, we have an example company, Hibou Sweets, a local bakery that sells tons of sugary stuff and tracks their assets in Odoo. So let's go ahead and get started. So before we jump into maintenance, the first thing I want to say is when you think of equipment, you might be thinking, well, what classifies as an equipment? Really anything can classify as an equipment that it's essentially something you just want to track, right? So this could be computers, cell phones, construction equipment, vehicles, essentially anything that you want to track the asset, who has it, and what's happening with it over time. So we'll launch our maintenance app. The first thing you'll see is the maintenance dashboard. So these are quick links to maintenance requests for a maintenance team. So what's scheduled, what's to do for the maintenance team, etc. If you're familiar with Odoo inventory, this will look pretty familiar to you because it's very similar to the operation cards that exist in the inventory app. But getting into the real meat of it, we'll hop on over to equipments and select one of our equipments here. We're going to take a look at our Breville mixer. So your name is a name that's easily identifiable by a user to see what the piece of equipment is. In this case, it's a Breville mixer. We have our equipment category, which is kitchen. The equipment categories serve to group similar types of equipments together. Used by can be a department, in this case bakery, can be a specific employee. So a department example would be if it's used in the kitchen. An employee would be a specific employee is using this piece of equipment. Or you can select other, which allows you to choose an employee and a department. So that's what we're going to do. And select our bakery and Hedwig. Over on the right-hand side here, we have our maintenance team, internal maintenance, and then the technician, myself. So essentially, anytime a maintenance request is created for this piece of equipment, it's going to be created for the internal maintenance team, and the responsible user for that maintenance request is going to be Kaylie. The maintenance team is a required field, but the technician is not. So you could just as easily leave the technician blank, and every time a maintenance request is created, it'll create it for the internal maintenance team, but then you can manually assign it to the technician that makes the most sense to complete it. You also have used in location, so that's just a free text field. It's not a drop down or anything, but you can enter additional information in there. We hop over to the product information tab. You have several fields here. Your vendor field would be who you purchased this from, what vendor did you purchase it from, and that can be helpful when used in conjunction with your warranty date. So let's say you have a maintenance request for this piece of equipment. You can look at your warranty date. If you're still within warranty, you can see who you purchased it from, and then you could reach out to the vendor you purchased it from to see if they'll be able to perform the maintenance request as a warranty repair. We also have our vendor reference and our model number. These are what the vendor and or the manufacturer refer to the piece of equipment as, and the serial number. So the serial number, while the name is easily identifiable to a user, the serial number is that specific number that is unique to every single piece of equipment. You'll also note that up here, it's displayed next to the name, and that's a searchable field as well. So you can search for equipment by the name, or you can search for the serial number. The serial number on like a computer is probably going to be found in the system preferences, but for a vehicle, you could also put the VIN number here as well. We have cost. This is an informational field. It's just for informational purposes. So you can look at it and see for a quick reference how much you purchased this equipment for. It doesn't create a fixed asset for you, so that is a separate process, purely informational. And then you have purchase date, purchase condition, and purchase note. These are provided by Hibou's purchase details module. Just gives you a little bit more information under the circumstances which you purchased this piece of equipment. So of course the date's pretty self-explanatory. Condition, new, used, or other. And then your purchase note, in this case, this is the PO under which we purchased the equipment. But let's say you selected others, your purchase condition, you could also note down here that it's like a certified refurbished product or something like that. So we'll go ahead and save this. We have a lot of smart buttons up across the right-hand side here. Smart buttons are essentially quick links to related documents. We are going to jump straight to the maintenance. So in repaired, you have maintenance requests that have been completed. And then over here, we have a preventative maintenance request. This is system generated based on a threshold that we'll look at a little bit later. And we have a manually created maintenance request as well. We're gonna go ahead and work on the manually created one. It's relatively high priority and it's corrective, so it's kind of an operations blocking maintenance request. Go ahead and edit this. So the name is filled in by the user if it's manually created. In this case, it said, we have a broken paddle, fix me. You'll also note that the created by, that's automatically filled in by the user, or to the user that's creating the maintenance request. We have our department. And additionally, we have a billing project. So this project is associated with the department, which is why it's automatically filled into Kitchen. And by having a billing project, it also provides this timesheet notebook down here that we'll take a look at in just a second. We see our category, the requested date, and then the maintenance type. Like I said, this one was corrective. Preventative ones are auto-generated that you could create one manually, and negligence. So somebody just walked up and snapped the paddle in half, you might call this a negligence one. Team, internal maintenance and responsible, that's what we were talking about earlier. Those were automatically assigned based on what was set on the equipment. And then you have your scheduled date. So scheduled date, we could say that we're gonna work on this October 10th, and we think it's going to take about 1 hour. We're ready to work on this. We're gonna move it to in progress. And we're going to jump on down here to parts. So the parts notebook down here is provided by the equipment repair module. We'll select the location from which we're going to pull our stock. Where is the stock that we, for the repair products we use, where is that going to come from? And then our destination location. I'm selecting inventory adjustment. That's just because of the data I have. You could just as easily, of course, have multiple stock locations and destination locations to track based on the team or, actually different locations like location A or location B. We'll add an item on here, our mixer paddle. So when we add our item, we see 3 price/cost fields: sale price, estimated cost, and cost. The cost field is empty because we won't know the true cost of this until we complete the stock move and we know how much that specific piece cost. You won't see the cost field unless you have the permissions of advisor. So it's kind of a control situation. The sales price and estimated cost, this is all totaled up at the bottom. And the use case for this is it provides a quick reference for the person doing the maintenance request. Let's say, for example, you could have a company policy where any maintenance request that's going to cost more than $500 has to be approved by a manager because maybe at that point it's cheaper to repair or replace the piece of equipment than it is to repair it. So that's why you have those fields here. And under timesheets, we can go ahead and create a timesheet. We'll say we replace the paddle, and we'll set that to 15 minutes. And when we save this, because we had an expected time on this maintenance request, we'll see that our remaining time is ticking down, very much like entering timesheets on a project task. We also have this button over here to complete. What this will do is it will complete the stock move on just that one line because you really need to, we added this part because we know we're going to need to use it on the maintenance request, but that doesn't actually necessarily mean you've used it yet, so you don't want to consume the stock at this point. But we do because we just entered a timesheet saying we replaced it, so we should actually complete the stock move. We also have this button up here to complete repair. What this will do is if you have multiple line items, it'll consume the stock for all the line items at one time. We're going to go ahead and use that one. Get a little pep talk from Rainbow Man here. All right, so now that that request is complete, we can move it into repaired and it is officially done. Hopping back out to our main dashboard, Hibou Sweets has now decided that they're going to do local deliveries because they want to get their sugary goods into the hands of people as quickly as possible. So in order to facilitate this, they are purchasing some vehicles for their local deliveries. So let's go ahead and create a new maintenance team. You can assign your team members here. Go ahead and add 2 folks here, so it's not just one person completing all the maintenance requests. You also have your default repair parts source. So one thing to note here is that these are set automatically when a maintenance request is created manually. If it's generated by the system, it won't have these destinations preset for you. All right, we'll save that, and then our next step is to create a category. I'm going to call it vehicles. It's a little generic, but you could also, if you had a large fleet, you could have delivery vans, trucks, cars, etc. A new field that you see here is usage unit of measurement. This is provided by the usage module, and we're going to set miles because that makes sense for the vehicles. Something to note about the usage unit of measurement is it doesn't actually have functionality per se so much as it is meant to provide a reference point for illustrative purposes. So for example, if somebody walked up to you and said, this van has 120,000 on it, 120,000 what? Miles. So we'll see how that comes into play in just a moment. Click on equipments, go ahead and create a new one, our delivery van. Again, we'll assign this to an employee and a department. We'll assign it to the administration department. They're going to be responsible for completing the for the local deliveries. And then we set our vehicle maintenance team. And down here, we're going to enter the mileage at the time that we created the piece of equipment. So 120,000. Under product information, we won't go through this again because we just did, but again, you can enter your VIN here. And then in maintenance, so it's time to explain some of these fields. Next, preventative maintenance is a stock field. That will display a date once a date has been generated based on this time threshold for preventative maintenance frequency. The preventative maintenance frequency is in days. Again, it's a time threshold for auto-generating your next preventative maintenance for this piece of equipment. 30 days might make a lot of sense for something like a computer, where you might want to bring it in every 30 days, check for viruses, do software updates, etc. And then maintenance duration, how long should each preventative maintenance take, or do you think each preventative maintenance will take? Set that to 2 hours. And then preventative usage. So again, this is a new field coming from Hibou's usage module. We're going to set this to 10,000. So what we're saying here is we're not necessarily wanting to create a preventative maintenance based on time. We want to create a preventative maintenance based on the usage of this product. So every 10,000 miles, we're going to do whatever you do with vehicles. Place the oil, all that good stuff. So one thing to note is that our usage smart button just incremented by 1. This is our initial usage log. It's recording the employee, the department, and the usage, in our case mileage, at the time of creation. So as this is used over time and different employees are using the piece of equipment or the mileage ticks up over time, then we get new usage logs. So this is really good. Anytime the employee, the department, or the usage changes, it creates a usage log. And this is helpful for reporting purposes to know who had a piece of equipment at any given time and what usage you had on that piece of equipment at that time. We also ticked up over our 10,000 miles. We started at 120,000, now we have 135,000. So we have a new preventative maintenance request that's been created based on that usage threshold. Going to set up, I wanted to have time on this, so I'm setting my department so it has the billing project. And we'll just go ahead and jump right into this. You guys are familiar with this process at this point. We're going to select our locations for our inventory. We're going to add 2 items here. We're going to add some motor oil and an air filter. And move this into in progress because we are working on it actively. So in this scenario, I'm only going to change the motor oil right now. And that took me 15 minutes. So I'm just going to consume the product for the motor oil. So one thing to note is when you are going through and processing these maintenance requests, like I said, you want to consume the inventory when it's actually been used. But what happens if you're completing a maintenance request in a stage like this, right? You only completed one stage, you move on to something else, you have this piece of inventory that you thought you were going to use just hanging out on a maintenance request. So if we hop out to maintenance request, we have this filter here for to repair, and that's only going to filter down to the maintenance requests that have products on it that have not yet been consumed. So this is a good audit trail. You can always circle back later and say, maybe we should delete this line because it was never used, or maybe it was used and we need to complete the inventory move so it's not hanging out in our stock for use on a future maintenance request or for sale if those products overlap. So we'll go ahead and complete this stock move as well. And add another timesheet. And we are done with that maintenance request. At this point, I want to go ahead and go back to our delivery van because there's one more smart button we haven't touched on, which is charges. So charges are a way of recording charges that are related to a piece of equipment over time. So to set that up, we'll go to equipment charge types and we'll create one. In this case, we'll create one for gasoline and we will select gallons, again, for illustrative purposes. So going back to our equipment, find our delivery van. We'll say that our employee was out and about, they were doing their local deliveries and they ran out of gas and they had to stop and they need to purchase more gas, and so now they want to record that per their company process as a charge for this specific piece of equipment. So they come over here to their charge type, select gasoline. At that point, we have our reference here, 10 gallons for $32. And you can leave a description like ran out of gas and save this. So your charge types can run the gamut. They could also be car washes, for example. Really anything that you want to note about a charge that took place related to a piece of equipment. If we go out to our equipment charges, we have another log. Every charge creates a log entry, and you can group them by charge types and all sorts of other things. So a good use case for this is that there are definitely instances where you may need to, especially if you have a fleet of vehicles, you may need to report on the types of fuel that were used and how much fuel was used in a given period of time. So the equipment charges combined with the usage logs would give you everything you need to report on what types of fuel were used and what kind of mileage was used for a given period of time, so you can remit that information to government agencies. So now that we have done all of that, it's time to take a quick look at what the reporting features are. So we looked at charge types and usage logs based on a piece of equipment. In some cases, that is how you want to look at it, but of course you have the option to go here and you can just narrow down on the piece of equipment. This is all of your equipment usage logs and charge types, so you can group and filter to your heart's content. Additionally, if we hop on over to projects, you can click on the overview and you can see the total cost. This is the cost for labor on maintenance requests related to this particular project. So in our example, it's an internal project. We're just tracking how much did the operations department, how much labor cost was involved for the operations department. But you could also track a customer project like this and note maybe a customer is, you're accumulating repair costs related to a customer project over time. Then in accounting, we have some options for reporting. You can look at your analytic entries over here. So we can look at our analytic account, And then we can look at the product. So we can see what product was used for the associated with this analytic account, what the cost for that was. Undefined in this case is going to be your time, your labor costs. So there's different ways to look at your labor costs versus your product costs. Also, you can look in your profit and loss and your general ledger, and you can filter based on your analytic accounts to get more detailed information. Just one thing to note is that if you're looking at in profit and loss and general ledger, your labor costs will not be accounted for. This is just accounting for stock moves related to the analytic entries. And that's all I've got. Questions? Yes.
Is there a possibility to create a purchase order for the servicing or the maintenance of that
To create a purchase order for the maintenance request? No, there's nothing like that right out of maintenance requests, because you're kind of under the assumption when you're tracking your own assets and doing the maintenance request in here that it's kind of like an internal project thing. So you're not necessarily creating a purchase order and giving that out to a vendor to complete the maintenance request.
For in-house maintenance, can I create a bill of material that every time there is a servicing to be done, I need to use a oil, I need to use a filter, I need to use a spark plug for every servicing that needs to be used?
So the question I think is there a way to create like a template for maintenance requests to add on specific types of products? No, not at this time, but that is an awesome feature. Any other questions? All right. I think we're good then. Let me know if you have any other questions. And like I said, all this is documented on our website, just full pages and pages of documentation and screenshots. So feel free to check that out if you have any further questions.